Astronauts on the International Space Station, ISS, were ordered to shelter in an attached spacecraft after the structure suddenly started leaking more air. 5 of the 7 crew were directed to go into the docked SpaceX shuttle Dragon Freedom on Friday afternoon and were braced for a potential evacuation.
Lebanese President Joseph Aoun delivered a searing rebuke to Iran on Friday, accusing it of using his country as a bargaining chip against the wishes of the Lebanese people in the conflict with the United States and Israel. In a rare and exclusive interview with CNN's Christiane Amanpour, President Aoun declared that he is committed to doing whatever it takes to save his country from conflict, and that the Lebanese people are fed up with war between Israel and Hezbollah, a heavily armed Iranian-backed proxy that has built strong domestic support by portraying itself as the defender of southern Lebanon and the Palestinian people.
The United States is planning to centralize visa processing across Africa, reducing the number of embassies and consulate applications from about 50 locations to roughly 20. According to an internal U.S. Department of State memo cited in U.S. media reports, under the proposal, routine visa many posts and consulate are expected to remain open and concentrated in smaller regional hubs. Embassies are expected to remain open and continue their diplomatic work. Ireland has barred Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich from visiting the country, citing their conduct towards pro-Palestinian activists and support for policies that would displace Palestinians from their homeland. Ireland's Prime Minister Michael Martin, known as the Dáil, confirmed the move on Friday, saying the 2 far-right ministers had advocated positions that amounted to a desire to see the elimination of Palestinians from Palestine.
Alexander Zverev moved to the verge of a long-awaited first Grand Slam title as the second seed saw off Jakub Mensik in 4 sets to reach his second French Open final. German will face either 10th seed Flavio Cobolli or his fellow Italian Matteo Arnaldi on Sunday, after securing a 7-5, 6-2, 3-6, 6-3 victory over Mensik on Friday.
The United States Senate has passed a bill long sought by US President Donald Trump to provide an additional $70 BN in funding to his controversial immigration enforcement drive. The bill passed early Friday morning will provide funding to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and Customs and Border Patrol, CBP, throughout Trump's term, adding to a massive windfall for both Department of Homeland Security agencies in a tax bill passed last year. Ukraine's ability to impede the flow of Russian supplies and personnel to the front lines has grown in recent days, from the southern regions of Zaporizhia and Kherson to the Eastern Front, and has forced the Russian army to a standstill, according to battlefield analysis. Meanwhile, Ukraine has continued to strike refineries and munitions factories deep inside Russia, weakening its war effort.
Supabase, the open-source database of choice for the vibe coding world, has raised a $500 million Series F at a $10 billion pre-money valuation, the company announced Friday. That's about $10.5 billion after the investment. The newly minted Dicacorn has been doubling its valuation every few months for a couple of years now, as vibe coding tools have driven its usage to astounding growth. Over 600% in the past year, with over 60% of new databases launched by some sort of AI tool. CEO and co-founder Paul Copplestone wrote in a blog post announcing the raise.
The federal government has announced a small reduction in petroleum product prices on 5th June. Sources shared with pro-Pakistani, the price of petrol has been reduced by 4 per litre. Lahore has banned the entry of commercial vehicles lacking valid driving licenses, fitness certificates and proper lights as part of a wider crackdown aimed at improving road safety and enforcing traffic laws. Chief Traffic Officer Lahore Syed Abdul Rahim Shirazi said only those commercial vehicles will be allowed to enter the city from now on whose drivers carry valid and effective driving licenses.
Blackmagic Design has released the final version of DaVinci Resolve 21, bringing one of the largest updates in the software's history. The new version adds a dedicated photo page for still image editing, new AI-powered tools, major workflow upgrades for editing, color grading, audio and visual effects, and broader support for camera formats and codecs.
State Bank of Pakistan's nationwide Go Cashless campaign generated more than ours, 34 billion in digital transactions during the Eid al-Azha season, highlighting growing public acceptance of digital payment solutions in one of the country's most cash-intensive markets. The campaign was implemented across 123 cattle markets nationwide, where more than 480,000 transactions were conducted through digital payment channels. The initiative marked a significant expansion from last year, when the programme covered 54 cattle markets.
A woman died after falling from a building at Mall of Emirat in Islamabad, with police launching an investigation to determine the circumstances of the incident. According to initial reports, the woman fell from an upper floor of the building located in Jinnah Gardens, capital enclave. Rescue teams reached the scene, but she had reportedly died before medical assistance could be provided.
A worsening air leak aboard the International Space Station, ISS, prompted 5 astronauts to take shelter and prepare for evacuation for roughly 2 hours on Friday as Russia attempted to fix a crack on its portion of the orbital laboratory. NASA said the 4 astronauts of NASA's Crew 12 mission aboard the station, 2 Americans, a French astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut, along with another US astronaut, were ordered by NASA Mission Control at 9:04 a.m. ET. They drove for GMT on Friday to enter their SpaceX-built Crew Dragon spacecraft docked to the station, NASA spokesperson Bethany Stevens said.
3 men who stole a 2,500-year-old Romanian golden helmet from a Dutch museum have each been sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison. The Cotopaxi helmet, which dates back to around 450 BC, was snatched by an armed gang who broke into the Drents Museum in Assen more than a year ago. 3 gold bracelets were also taken in the raid, prompting outrage in Romania and raising questions about security for artefacts on loan to other countries. Potential peace deal between the United States and Iran hinges on the Trump administration agreeing to release $24 billion in frozen Iranian assets, a top Iranian official told CNN on Friday, warning that the US would enter into a dark corridor should it resume fighting. The negotiations are at a deadlock, and US President Donald Trump must break this deadlock. Mohsen Rezai, military advisor to Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mujtaba Khamenei, told CNN in an exclusive interview in Tehran. The ball is in Trump's court.
Barcelona winger Lamine Yamal has won La Liga's Player of the Season award. The 18-year-old helped Barca retain their domestic crown, became the first player to win the league's Player of the Month award 3 times in one season, and finished as the club's top scorer in La Liga with 16 goals and 11 assists.
Nigerian authorities say at least 49 people died of thirst in an isolated Sahara Desert district in northern Niger after their truck broke down, leaving them stranded for days. The dead were among a group returning from Mali to celebrate the Muslim festival of Eid al-Adha with their families in Niger when they ran short of water, the Agadez Governorate said on Friday in a post on Facebook.
Tehran, Iran, in the popular Bastan market in the west of the Iranian capital, where the inviting smell of fresh bread and fruit mingle with the sight of colourful fabrics and clothing, the scene no longer holds its usual joy. Passers-by wander among the vendors' stalls, carefully turning goods over only to return them to their places.
Manchester City chairman Khaldoon Al-Mubarak plans to say everything about the club's battle with Premier League chiefs once a verdict on their financial charges has been delivered. City were charged with 115 alleged breaches of the Premier League's financial rules in 2023.
NASA briefly had 5 astronauts aboard the International Space Station shelter in a docked SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft on Friday, while their Russian counterparts attempted to repair a leaking service module. NASA spokesperson Bethany Stevens initially wrote in an X post on Friday that Russia's space agency Roscosmos had discovered new leaks in its service module and decided to perform an extensive repair operation.
A ransomware gang has escalated its attacks on law firms by sometimes sending fake IT workers in person to the victims' offices, where the imposters steal data directly from the victims' computers using USB drives or help other gang members connect to the computers remotely, according to Google and the FBI. On Friday, Google's cybersecurity teams Mandiant and Google Threat Intelligence Group published a new report accusing the cybercriminal gang known as Silent Ransom Group of attempting to steal victims' information using physical, in-person access in attacks from January through May of this year that targeted dozens of victims. Apple is reportedly working with Google and Nvidia to power its next-generation Siri, marking a major shift in the company's usual approach of keeping key technologies in-house. The upgraded Siri is expected to use a licensed version of Google's Gemini tier model for some queries, while Google Cloud infrastructure would rely on Nvidia Blackwell chips to process AI workloads.
The Sindh government has imposed a ban on bringing mango boxes and crates into the Sindh Secretariat, citing security concerns at the sensitive government complex. According to an official notification, the restriction applies to the main Sindh Secretariat building, as well as barracks A4 and B4. The ex-wife of a nephew of Dubai's ruler has been arrested following a long-running custody battle. Prosecutors in the UAE said on Friday Zainab Javadli was detained after her former husband, Sheikh Saeed bin Maktoum bin Rashid Al Maktoum, accused her of abducting their 3 children.
On Wednesday, Israel and Lebanon announced yet another ceasefire after they had seemingly already agreed to a truce on April 16th. Iran and the United States have formally had a ceasefire in place since April 8, and Israel and Hamas, the Palestinian group, have had a ceasefire in Gaza since October 10, 2025. While the United States and Iran have continued to exchange a series of proposals and counter-proposals for peace since a temporary ceasefire was announced in April, leaders on both sides have repeatedly signaled that they are also prepared to use force against the other if the need should arise. And despite that Pakistan-mediated ceasefire announced on April 8, flare-ups since then have prompted fears that renewed war, rather than peace, could be next.
The United States Space Agency, NASA, has ordered astronauts on board the International Space Station, IS, to prepare for possible evacuation as a Russian crew attempts to repair worsening air leaks. The order on Friday related to 4 astronauts of NASA's Crew 12 mission on the station, which includes 2 US astronauts, a French astronaut and a Russian astronaut.
World Health Organization, WHO, and the African Union's health agency have announced a $518 plan to combat the deadly Ebola outbreak in conflict-ridden Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, and neighboring Uganda. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said on Friday that the plan, in collaboration with the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC, will run from June to November. It will cover emergency coordination, or surveillance, testing, infection prevention, clinical care, and community engagement.
Anthropic has deployed around half a dozen engineers to the National Security Agency to help its spies use the company's frontier cybersecurity AI model, Mythos. The Financial Times reported, citing engineers are reportedly tasked with helping the intelligence agency use Mythos for certain applications, the report said. However, it's unclear if the engineers or Mythos are being actively used in the agency's hacking operations.